Welcome to Here Comes the Boom, a Kentucky basketball recruiting podcast brought to you by KSR and KSR Plus. We're in the middle of official visit season, so we're going to keep you covered on all things Kentucky basketball when it comes to these official visits coming up and what's the latest with all the players that Kentucky's going after. So let's get right into it and take a look at Kentucky's official visit schedule because they've already had a lot of guys on campus. Starting with Sion Kita in July. You had Tyron Stokes out there way back in the summer. And then the fall official visits started. So you had Maximo Adams, Caleb Holt, Arifan Diani, Anthony Thompson, and Christian Collins have all visited. You had Cam Williams, who had to move his visit. He's rescheduling that. And then upcoming, we've got Bryson Howard coming up October 4th through 6th. And then Deron Rippey the following week, October 6th through 8th, and then Big Blue Madness. So let's talk a little bit about Bryson Howard, who's Kentucky's next upcoming visit. It's really Kentucky, Duke, and North Carolina as the three schools that are coming up with Bryson Howard. UNC was getting a lot of buzz after his official visit last month. He also took a visit to Duke last month. And now the thought is Kentucky went and visited with him last week, and they're gaining some momentum in that recruitment. Right now, I see Kentucky and UNC being the two that are coming up the most for him, but you have Duke still involved. So those are the three schools for him, and we'll see how this official visit goes if Kentucky can gain some momentum on that visit. And then you have Deron Rippey, who Kentucky's been going after for a long time, a lot of schools on his list. He's taken a bunch of official visits. He's already visited. He visited Louisville last year, and then this year he's visited Miami, North Carolina, Texas, and Syracuse. Upcoming, he's got visits to Kentucky, Duke, Tennessee, and NC State. So there's a lot of schools vying for his recruitment, and he's really the biggest point guard target on the board for Kentucky right now. So that's a big visit coming up, and then you got the three guys for Big Blue Madness. So we'll have coverage on all of those guys. We'll be at Big Blue Madness. So stay tuned to that. Be sure to go and subscribe to KSR Plus and subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel. Now I want to give a shout out to our friend Andy Ludicky from MyPerfectFranchise.net. Andy is a huge college sports fan and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. Using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a very thorough consultation and evaluation process. If you're wanting to find a way out of corporate America, wanting a side hustle business, or a way to diversify, reach out to Andy. He's got a ton of knowledge in this world. And best of all, his services are 100% free to you always. Head to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you can text Andy at 404-973-9901. All right, that is, we've talked about the visits. Now I want to talk about another topic, the 2027 class, which we've touched on a little bit on this show, but we haven't put a lot of focus into the 2027 class. But I'm talking to some sources that say that 2026 could have a massive amount of 2027 players reclassifying into that class. We've already seen one with Baba Oladotun. He was the first highly touted player to make the move from 2027 into 2026. He was a top 5 player in the 2027 class, and now he's a top 15, top 10 player in the 2026 class, and Kentucky's expected to host him for a visit sometime this month. And then you've got a list of players that some Kentucky are going after, others Kentucky isn't going after at this moment, but a lot of players where there's been some buzz of a reclassification. The first being Bruce Branch, who is now the number 1 ranked player in the 2027 class, but he's older than Baba, so wouldn't be a surprise to see him move into that 2026 class. I know some schools are talking to him as a 2026, some as a 2027, so that'll be one to watch. Kentucky hasn't offered him yet, but they've been in to see him multiple times, and they're starting to build a relationship there. Abina Akizi Jr. is another player where there's been some reclassification talk. He is a player that he was, I think, the second player that Kentucky offered in the 2027 class. And when I talked to him at Peach Jam, he basically said that it's all going to depend on his development. And if he keeps getting better, then he could look at that 2026 class, but I wouldn't expect any decision to be made until the summer. Kentucky had Mark Pope and Cody Feger in to see him last month, so they're making him a priority. And then there are a few other players that Kentucky hasn't really been mentioned with that have had some reclassification talks. One, Paulo Cerui. He was a player that Kentucky had a little bit of interest in, but hasn't really been maintaining regular contact. He's hearing from Oregon, Duke, Houston, Virginia, Texas, Kansas, and Syracuse, and he's one of the older players in that 2027 class. So he may make that move into 2026. LJ Smith is an interesting one, a 6'4" guard out of Oak Hill. He's one to watch for long term, as maybe once the elite guards in 2026 make their college decisions, he's one that could get the call up to 2026 from some schools. And then the last guy is Javon Bardwell, who just cut his list of 4. Kentucky's not involved there, but he is a player that very likely could move into the 2026 class. So those are just some names that are being talked about. I just continue to hear that 2027, a lot of them are going to be moving into 2026. So that is something to watch. Final thought is really a lot of the visit schedule is coming to an end. So college decisions are starting to be made across the board. Kentucky's probably going to get their first commit sometime in the next couple of months before the early signing period. And I really expect it to be like a domino effect where you start to see one guy commit and guys fall into line, finding their spots. And I think that this month and next month could see a ton of commitments across the board. So be sure to subscribe to KSR Plus. We're going to have a ton of coverage on all of Kentucky's recruiting targets, and then subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us.